Yeah, so we don't have any fancy slides. We're just having a chat. I'm Celeste Berteau. I'm from the Life Changes Trust, and I'm here with Kevin and Briege, and we're here to talk about what meaningful participation looks like in research and evaluation, which, when most people think about inclusive and engaging in participation, the words research and evaluation might not immediately spring to people's mind. But at the Trust, we've always seen the value of having our beneficiaries' voices at the center of everything that we do. And so as we started wrapping up our time as a funder and focusing more on evaluating our work and sharing our learning, we knew we wanted the voices of those with lived experience to be involved in this aspect of our work too. So we've encouraged our external evaluators to hire peer researchers, and we've also supported a participatory evaluation project, which is being run by Media Education and Briege here, which focuses on supporting young people with experience of care to become peer researchers. So there are challenges to working in this way, and many of those were honestly exacerbated by COVID lockdowns. But at the end of the day, what we found is that participatory evaluation is incredibly valuable. Researchers have told us how working with peer researchers has positively impacted their own practice. And we've seen firsthand the high quality information and learning that we get when peer researchers are involved in designing and asking questions. So while the goal is obviously to kind of fully work towards fully and completely co-designed research and evaluation, we've also learned the importance of being flexible and recognizing that this isn't an all or nothing approach. We've really just seen the magic that can happen when you support peer researchers ethically and holistically. And yeah, we want to share this model and encourage others to work in this way. So I'm going to hand it over to Briege now, and she's going to share some of her thoughts.
Okay, so I'm just going to share some top tips about peer research in terms of engagement. And this is drawn on the work that I'm doing with the Life Changes Trust, and also Kevin and I are working together with a project with Includem. So it's two projects I'm kind of garnering this knowledge from. And the top tip, I think the top thing would be, if there's one word you can take away today, is flexibility. And this idea that a very academic sense of peer research is that it has to be, completely everything, every stage they have to be involved. And that is the ideal, but actually what we found is that it's realistic, and it's probably more likely that you meet people where they're at and what they want to actually be involved in. So like, for example, with the Life Changes Trust project, none of the peer researchers actually really wanted to do the analysis, because guess what? Analysis isn't that much fun. And so I think there's something about being honest about that, but also being flexible and offering different options at different stages, what people want to actually be involved in, what is their interest. And with that, being realistic and about the timescales. Try and be clear about their role. What do they want to do? What's the responsibility? Who holds responsibility for what? And what can be truly done collaboratively, and be honest about that. Be honest about the limitations. So don't say you're co-producing everything if you're not co-producing everything. So we didn't say that. We hoped that from the outset, but it didn't transpire that really did happen. Be inclusive. Like, there's been a lot of talk today, and I think it's really valuable to hear about this, reaching quieter voices. How do you do that? How do you get those quieter voices in? How do you think more innovatively about the networks that you're establishing from the outset? And you don't need to have academic skills to make a valuable contribution. Everybody has a role to play in this, and all voices should be heard. Being prepared. So right from the start, we talked about the training for the peer researchers. Again, identifying where the boundaries are, what their role is. If they're not counsellors, they don't have to fix things, and to be trauma informed. So actually recognize that some of the interviews might be triggering, but where the support, and within that, how do we walk that journey with people? And actually, we're all human. We are all going to be affected by these stories, and if you're not going to be affected by them, then you shouldn't be doing this job. But it's about being supported through that process. Okay, so how did we do that? Well, we looked at what the networks are that people already have. We established clear lines of communication with those networks for the Life Changes Trust project, and we connected people up to support if they needed it. So for example, there's been counselling that we're offering as part of the end kind of process, end in contact sensitively. Payment is a big thing that we've talked about throughout this. We offered a living wage to the peer researchers throughout the project, but we also understood, for example, that they couldn't commit every month to certain things, but we give them a monthly wage so that they could budget. And we also, I think that also kind of helped them be clearer about what time was expected of them throughout the process. But I think we do need to be more imaginative as well about how we do payment, because we need to recognize, for example, it can affect people's benefits too. So it's about working out what works best for people. Okay, so I'm now going to bring Kevin. I think we've heard Kev's name quite a bit today, but this is the Kev, he's amazing. And so I'm going to ask Kev, why did you become involved in, or why did you become involved in peer research, and what value did you think you could bring to the table? Because to be honest, we've struggled actually to get peer researchers initially for the Life Changes Trust project. So can you tell me about why you got involved and what value did you think you could bring?
I got involved because I was looking for a challenge, Preach, and I thought that being able to put myself out there and use the experiences I've had, for instance, the services I used to get for including when I was younger, and that made me think that I could kind of exert my own compassion and empathy into the guide, into the questions we're asking, and I'm seeing this as resulting in the conversations I'm having with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And how have you found it so far?
Amazing. It's been really good and really humbling to be able to speak to people at the level of not being an official researcher and not working for Includem or any other charity that's looking for good researchers. But it's been the main thing. I think it's been rewarding and able to give me a better look at my own experience and turn it into a positive.
So I know that, I mean, when we've talked before, Kev, there have been some times that have been you've had some difficult conversations in the work that you've been doing. So I guess I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about kind of what sort of support is needed to do this kind of work, and kind of what's helped you in this process.
I think it's what I've been managing to do with Bridge and Megas have honesty and openness where I'm at, and they understand that, and that I can get in here with a wise head and use my experiences to kind of, I don't know, sometimes I'm having to tempt out answers from people and kind of get right deep into conversations that sometimes might not have happened if I hadn't been able to reflect on my experience and compare almost.
Yeah, I think that definitely has brought a different side to the communication, and people have spoke openly at the end of the interviews about how they found it really valuable to speak to somebody who's been there. And I think one of the things we kind of really emphasized in the training was not just about people support networks professionally, but personally, and also self-care. Be mindful of when you think you're being affected by this, be honest about it. And also, use your own skills as well in terms of self-care and what helps you to take your mind off things. How do you look after yourself? Going to the gym, things like this. That's, we all have our own wee ways of kind of dealing with things. But Kev and I openly have talked about this between each other, that actually, no matter how prepared you are as a researcher, sometimes there will be an account that really affects you, and actually that's okay. Don't pretend otherwise, but you have us to speak to, we can talk through it. And also, our role is, we're really lucky because we're doing this with Includem, so we know they have support there. But there are other research that you could do in the future where you would have that role where you have to connect them to support. But I think we're quite lucky with Includem because we know we're kind of doing these interviews in the kind of recognition that they have that support there. But I think it's about knowing your role, really. And yeah. I think, Kev, would it be fair to say that you've done that quite quickly, but it did take a wee bit of time to understand what your role is as the researcher?
No, I don't think it took me a bit of a while to understand it, but it's to make it a wee bit clearer in my head. And you get this through practicing it, and it's by doing it time and time again, then it does become clearer, and you kind of separate yourself from that emotional connection you get when you've got that experience, and that comes with, because that's what we bring as peer researchers. But it's good to have the professionals there as well to say, look, well, you've got this role and you are someone that might one day be a professional, so you just need to stick to your role and own it, I suppose.
Yeah, but you are a professional. What are you on about? You are a professional. I think that's the other thing is treating
Yes.
us, we're all a team. So it's colleagues that we don't see the peer researcher as somebody below us. Like, I think if anything, you're more qualified than us doing the interview. So I think that's really important as well, to see,
Yeah.
treat everybody as equals and not just say that, actually
Yeah.
mean it.
I think that was clear for me for the outset, Rach, when I got the opportunity to develop the topic guide and put my stamp on that. When you says to me, in fact, Kev, you can batter in, you can go ahead and put your stamp on it. And when I done that, it gave me a real feeling of value and proud of myself that, yeah, I can put my spin on this and hopefully get some good research out there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the questions that you're asking they're things I would never have come up with. Like, one of the peer researchers came up with a question of, do you ever take the piss out of your worker? And I just was like, oh my gosh, like, you would never normally come up with that. But I think it immediately kind of strikes a chord with families when you're asking quite clear questions that they totally value and they get, and it comes clearly from experience. So it's I think we're all learning in this process. As I'm trying to say is, I'm learning from you too. So it's a mutually beneficial collaboration.
I want to chat with you guys all day, but I'm aware that I think we've run out of time. I want to do a little bit of a plug because there have been a few people in the chat saying, like, where can we read more about this work? So Briege is finalizing a report. It's going to be coming out in September. So I'll make sure the details of that get passed on to Rosie and Michelle. So you all can hear about we'll have an event. There's going to be a top tips. There's going to be lots of different stuff coming out. So you just watch this space. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very, very much, guys. And yeah, for those of you that have just joined us today for the first time, we do circulate resources and information and opportunities quite regularly and update them on our webpage. So we'll make sure when that's out that we circulate it so that you all get a chance to read that, because it is brilliant.